Now, pundits in Washington like to talk about the myth of the moderate Republican. Recently, of course, and how this ties into with the moderate Republicans is recently the CBA score of the Senate version of Trump Care, which shows in its many respects to be much, much worse than the House version. There are a lot of Republicans that vowed not to support this. That has, of course, led to the Senate to delay this piece of legislation while they work on improving it. Okay. Now you might think, great, these people must be the moderate Republicans that the corporate media loves to talk about. Oh, so the moderate Republicans, got to work with the moderate Republicans. They're out here, they're trying to protect your access to health care if you have a pre-existing condition. They're the good ones. Well, okay. Well, if you think that, you would be wrong. There are no moderate Republicans, as I've said on many occasions. They don't actually exist. They used to exist. They don't exist anymore. And if they did, actually, they would be called, they wouldn't be called Republicans. They'd be called corporate Democrats. Those are where your moderate Republicans went to. People like Charlie Crist, for example, in Florida, was a moderate Republican. Now he's a Democrat. And of course, he's a corporate Democrat who supports Republican policies. So that's where your moderate Republicans went. Now, Ron Johnson, I guess some people would think that, oh no, this guy would be considered a moderate Republican because he's against the so-called Better Care Act. Now, he's against this, not because it throws 22 million people off healthcare, or brings back lifetime in caps and coverage and cuts $800 billion or nearly in Medicaid. No, he actually likes that stuff. He's actually against it because it leaves in place some protection for people with pre-existing conditions. Now, he actually can't stand that, and as you're about to see.
We do, but nobody wants to really talk about it. We know why these premiums have increased. I am reminded by, remember President Bill Clinton talking about Obamacare as a crazy system? And he started talking about the people that are busting it, sometimes working 60 hours a week, and then they're left with premiums that have doubled and their coverage cut in half. Those are the forgotten men and women in this entire health care debate, but we know why those premiums doubled. We've done something with our healthcare system that you would never even think about doing, for example, with auto insurance, where you'd require auto insurance companies to sell a policy to somebody after they crash their car. States that have enacted guaranteed issue, which is the guarantee for pre-existing conditions, it crashes their markets. It causes to collapse. It causes premiums to skyrocket. Now, the good news, Chuck, is you can actually address people with pre-existing conditions without collapsing markets. It's by properly designing high-risk pools. Maine passed guaranteed issue, and what they had to do is they had to institute an invisible high-risk pool, but we don't have the courage in Washington. We don't have the honesty to talk about these things with real information, real facts, go through that problem-solving process, information, agree on achievable goals, then set the strategies, then pass the legislation.
Look at basically what he said is that, if you mandate pre-existing coverage for pre-existing conditions, that crashes the market for people that have essentially crashed their cars. Okay, so that's what he said before. Now, you realize that we have an auto insurance mandate as well. So he's going on and he's making comparisons like, well, we don't see this happening in auto insurance. I mean, you give insurance to people who crash your car, right? Actually, you are required to sell to people who crash your car. Because everybody's supposed to have insurance. It's mandated. It's mandated. Now, it's going to be more expensive, obviously, but everybody is supposed to get insurance. If you want to drive a car, you have to get insurance. That is a mandate. He doesn't understand how this works, okay? Does he not know this? How can he not know this? Does he not drive a car? Does he not understand how auto insurance is mandated? And that's the idea behind the individual mandate, is that everybody, has to have insurance, right? Yeah, well, there you go. Now, second, he's equating pre-existing conditions with somebody being reckless and crashing their car. I mean, look, that's what's behind it. Not an accident, because that's a completely different context. His context is these people crash their cars. They crashed their own bodies. They destroyed their own bodies. Why should we have to pay for that? We shouldn't have to guarantee you access to affordable coverage because you already wrecked yourself, and now it's just too expensive. You should be charged more and not have, and have people be able to charge you more for that coverage. A lot more. Now, look, it only takes a second to think and to realize that, hey, man, human beings are not cars. They're not like cars. So there's a fundamental difference here between health insurance and auto insurance. Now, the other piece of this, of course, is that, and it makes no sense, is that he's basically blaming people for wrecking themselves and having pre-existing conditions. Well, look, consider people, a baby born with a heart defect. Well, that baby didn't crash their car. They didn't do anything to ruin their body to have a pre-existing condition. He was born. Now, if you're pro-life, I'm sure pro-life, Ron Johnson is such a pro-life guy that he'd be like, oh, well, I mean, that guy, like, a kid has to be born, and then we need to take care of it, right? No. Kid has to be born, and then sad day for you. You got a heart condition, you pay more. That's what this is about. Ron Johnson is saying, hey, sad day for you, kid. You got to pay more. Your parents got to pay more. They can't afford it. You die. And you can't get the treatment that you need. You can't get the medicine that you need. Sad day for you, okay? These people with pre-existing conditions that get them through no fault of their own, well, they're going to get totally screwed. One way or the other. That's the whole Republican plan. Because they completely misunderstand how insurance is supposed to work. With insurance, you get the insurance, and you pay your premiums so that sick people can get taken care of. And these sick people who often can't afford the entire price of their coverage, well, you have to make sure that they can afford something at least equal to what you're paying as a healthy person, if not a little bit more. Republicans say, no, you should pay a lot more for your health insurance. Now, of course, I don't believe in the idea of health insurance. I actually believe in single-payer Medicare for all, which would negate all these problems. But I'm just explaining how Ron Johnson completely misunderstands the whole idea behind insurance because, again, he's not in favor of covering people who are sick. That's the whole point of insurance. Again, it amazes me that he doesn't get it, but then again, he's not paid to get it. Because insurance companies love it when they don't have to pay for pre-existing conditions. They love it when more people have to pay in more in premiums and take out less. So I get that. Now, people like Ron Johnson said, people with pre-existing conditions, I don't care if they're covered. Actually, I want to see them screwed more. I don't think they should have protections because it's your fault. Now, nearly all the senators that came out against this bill the same way. That's the amazing part about this. They all think it's too liberal. It keeps too much of Obamacare. Rand Paul, for example, he's like, you know, we need less Obamacare, more freedom. Ron Johnson's like, we need less pre-existing coverage and more freedom. Like, that's their alternative to everything. Freedom, freedom, freedom. What does that mean? That's not freedom. You're essentially saying that if you can't afford health insurance, you're shit out of luck, man. Sorry, you can go die. And that's not hyperbole. That is the logical end result of these policies. Their approach isn't, their approach to healthcare is not about how can we cover more people with better coverage and do it cheaper, right? Not like what they've been promising, because that's what they promise, and everything that they come up with runs contrary to that promise. That's because their approach is, how can we undo the taxes that Obamacare put into place for the rich and still get away with passing a bill that doesn't destroy us politically, at least immediately? How can we rob the place first before people catch on? And how do we do it fast? That's why they tried to ram this thing through. That's why they've tried to ram everything through, especially the last one before it got scored by the CBO, because they knew the CBO, the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, would actually spell out the facts on this bill. Look, this goes out to their entire belief system, their orthodoxy, right? They don't believe that everyone deserves to be covered if it means government putting a system into place to cover those people who can't afford it on their own. They believe that you should have to earn a right to health care, which I believe it's insane. As we can see, so many people in vital industries like food service and retail, they don't get benefits, okay? And they can't just go and get a better job. I mean, that's what they say. Get a better job, get a better job. Well, if it were possible for everyone to get a better job, and it's not, well, you still have people like, who's going to make your hamburger? Who's going to run your checkout? Not everybody can get a better job. And not everybody should have to have access to health care. Something that every human being is going to need in their life. Okay? And the jobs that we're talking about, and the people that were on Medicaid, who, by the way, for the most part, there's a large majority of people on Medicaid that actually work. These people end up working in low-wage sectors. Now, if they were offered a high wage, then maybe they'd be able to buy health insurance. But then, of course, the Republicans are against that as well. So what are the options? Well, there aren't any options, and they know that. Mitch McConnell knows that, Paul Ryan knows that, and Ron Johnson knows that, and really, they just do not care whatsoever. Hey, everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.